Hello and good day. How are you doing? My name is Mecyll and I'm a self-published author. And welcome to this episode in my healing journey with the forest. In this episode, as you can see, it will be quite long. It will be a bit longer than I used to produce in the last few weeks because this is quite special in my heart, because this is one of the darkest chapters of my life that I have not shared with anyone yet. Although my husband knows about my real situation and the reality of how it is to survive abuse, childhood trauma, and to overcome this seemingly tragic part or chapter of my life ends as an adult, me as an adult. And because it is quite heavy, this is the very reason why I like to take you to this very forest, which is just nearby around the area where we live, and to share with you the energy that I'm taking within through my senses as I walk around with my husband, to be in peace with myself and others as I heal my trauma, my childhood trauma that I've been carrying all my life, in the last 30 years of my life to be exact. And part of it is the intention to share the reality of trauma, childhood trauma, and the impacts of childhood trauma, the unresolved childhood trauma to the adults. The me as an adult. I'm 31 now, but the trauma that I had was when I was still around 10 or even earlier. But the impacts of it, I hadn't realized the impacts of it until I'm adult, until I'm able to speak with you with honesty and authenticity, speaking the words from my heart, from the deepest part of my heart. And along with it is the intention to share with you how it is to live with CPTSD or complex PTSD as a writer. And this is the very reason why I'm so passionate to teach others how to alchemize their painful stories into an inspiring novel, for example, or inspiring, heartfelt, wholehearted novella, if you will. Fantasy, the fiction. Transforming painful stories into fiction is not what I've expected that I would do in my adult life, because in my early years, I was heavily indoctrinated and I really heavily believed that the only path to life is to be able to succeed in the most materialistic way possible. For example, in my early 20s, I believed that having a lot of money will make me happy. I believed that having a lot of achievements, accolades, honors, and medals under my belt was tied to my self-worth, and I believed that my self-worth was heavily dependent on external validation, and that includes medals, praises from people, recognition from others, while discrediting the hard work that I've put into in every project and every book that I have written over the last years. And this is part of the healing process as an adult with CPTSD. And it's been 3 years of shadow work, and at this time I'd like to share with you how that 3-year shadow work transformed me while enjoying the view of Germany. I assume you've already heard about PTSD, which is the acronym for post-traumatic stress disorder, and if you don't know about it, you may have not imagined how debilitating it can be for the person struggling with it. But first of all, what is CPTSD? Aside from the word complex, the gap between the two is the frequency of the person's exposure to the traumatic events happening in the surroundings. For example, workplace, home. Someone may develop symptoms of PTSD after a one-time exposure to a traumatic event or a single incident trauma, such as assault, serious accident, war, and so on. In contrast, exposure to CPTSD requires more than once. And the worst part, it has to be long. It has to be like an entire childhood, an entire teenage years and the entirety of it was just abuse. The individual, regardless of age and background, but primarily children, must encounter a prolonged re-exposure to the same traumatic event, repeatedly experiencing the same stress level that doesn't seem to fade away. In other words, unlike PTSD, the sufferer must have endured years-long constant narcissistic abuse or any other abuse from their caregivers or family members to develop CPTSD. It's not like the abuse only happened once for someone to start living with complex post-traumatic stress. In my case, I grew up as a child who learned how to reject the self from the early years of my consciousness, as far as the earliest memories are concerned. I don't really remember that I was already confident or I've developed this life skill. I really consider myself as an adult confidence as a life skill because it wasn't the first lesson that I learned. I learned how to shut off. I learned how to shut my mouth. I learned how to be so small, playing small. I learned how to be safe. I learned how to make fortresses and build the strongest fortresses as a child, thinking that the world is a very dangerous place, an extremely dangerous place, and even at home I really didn't feel safe emotionally. And when I was at school, I wasn't even safe at all. So children who grew up in an abusive home felt more helpless and unable to escape and run away from their abusers. So the longer they stay within the confines of their abusers, the higher the chances of developing complex PTSD due to childhood trauma, which will last until adulthood or beyond. So kids as young as below as 4 years old or earlier can't support themselves financially, let alone find a new home or safe home to live in peace. Because for me, just remembering it as a survivor, children are too preoccupied with surviving every minute, day and night, than caring for comfort. So their minds are too busy to think of other things other than the ongoing abuse. Because in my case, I remember when I was cornered and I was physically beaten, I really didn't have the time to think about the pain. I was like in a trance. I remember it was really like my first memory of trance, where my mind was just out there, but like my eyes could see that I was being beaten up, but my mind really wasn't able to register the pain. It was like my pain went somewhere, but I'm seeing what they're doing to me. And as an adult, after studying psychology, narcissism, and shadow work, I realized that what happened to me was disassociation. My body, my brain was trying to save me from the situation, from the incident, that it created this illusion of me being away or absent so that I will be able to endure or survive that moment. The pain was too much for the child. So for me, maybe at that time when I was around 10 or 8 years old, it was maybe too much for me to understand what was going on, that I chose to be away from myself unconsciously. But now, as I'm processing this pain with you, as I'm taking you to this lovely forest, this is when I realized, this is really the first time that I realized that what happened to me was bad and terrible. Unfortunately, their parents or primary caregivers who were supposed to give them the unconditional love they needed were responsible for inflicting the pain themselves. There's no single day when the abuse didn't occur, and extend that to, let's say, 20 years when the child becomes an adult. So imagine yourself being in the child's shoes, beaten up, bullied by the parents and family members every day and night. Who wouldn't make them suffer living with complex PTSD? Years of daily physical, emotional, and psychological abuse can lead to developing PTSD or complex PTSD in adulthood, which requires lifelong, consistent treatment and therapy for the sufferer. Sadly, I've been dealing with mental health issues since I was 16. As I got older, I've been living with complex PTSD and the side effects, the consequences of PTSD, CPTSD, for I don't know how long. And to take note, it wasn't until 2020 that CPTSD was officially recognized as a disorder by the American Psychiatric Association. So it's really just recently that we have this term to describe this journey, this dark journey that I have in the last 30 years. Not only must I learn how to deal with the triggers that could cause traumatic inner self-unrest, I could say, and judgment from others, but I try to live the best version of myself, my life with deep scars, literally and metaphorically. According to a group of research, the results of their study in 2018 entitled Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder and Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder in DSM-5 and ICD-11, Clinical and Behavioral Correlates, showed that people like me who suffered from CPTSD have higher diagnostic associations with depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation, as well as self-harm, compared to those with PTSD. Here's an actual journal entry which I wrote 4 years ago. I've never shared this before, but I like you to have a clear picture of how CPTSD has engulfed my life and had me paralyzed creatively for so long time. Here's how it goes. July 28, 2018, 10:16 a.m., Saturday. I don't know where to start writing, but I guess I will first let my mind flow how it wants. Just in case, whatever happens to me, someone reading my entries will know what's going on. From the outside, I look sick, somehow okay, but I say it's a clear voice of what's happening inside me. In the past 10 years, I've been harming myself by cutting my skin like a piece of paper to write on. I wrote love on my arm for the first time. I was 16 at that time, a top student graduating valedictorian and with a lot of awards. But I wasn't happy. It was something for my family's happiness, not mine. It was a promise that I had to fulfill after failing to achieve the top one in grade school. "I'm sorry, Ma. I couldn't make it, being a valedictorian," the 12-year-old me said. "It's okay, as long as you promise me to graduate as a top one in your high school," she said. In reply. So I did fulfill the promise. As a result of all the pressure, being unlawfully taken out as the editor-in-chief of the school publication, pressured as a class president with my homeroom advisor, who happened to be the same person who moderated our school publication, being a student body organization, vice president, and class valedictorian, ranting, scolding, and overly controlling home. After I returned from school, all of these played roles in my decision to cut myself using a nail pusher onto my skin. At 18, I cut my wrist again, and someone saw it. At 20, I created a scene at a retreat house because of a professor scolding that almost suspended the entire 3-day retreat. In college, I was told by someone, "You can't make your emotional instability an excuse." She was supposed to be my moderator, she was supposed to be my guide, but she was the one who said this to me first. What I didn't realize or failed to realize at that time, that I had developed a problematic complex personality disorder all these years. From those times until now, I felt like I was ongoing. I still cut myself, punched my torso, slapped myself on the arm until bruises mapped my body, and succumbed to an eating disorder. Within 10 years, I developed a bad eating habit wherein I'm not particularly eager to eat. Although I'm a foodie, whenever I feel stressed to starvation. Because of that, I have a series of weight fluctuations, now at 55 kilos or 123 pounds. Since December 1, 2017, when my husband left for days after we got married because of health and financial issues, I didn't eat properly because of self-blame and depression. Within 7 months, my weight dropped from 65 kilos to 55, sometimes 54. I achieved it with starvation, vomiting, after eating meals and laxatives. This month I realized how lethargic I was because of the weight loss. But it didn't stop me from doing high-impact cardio or aerobic exercises in my routine. I work out until I collapse, black out, and sometimes faint in the midst. This month I fainted the other day and first time in late June, but I didn't care as long as I achieved the thinness I wanted. Having an eating disorder helps me cope with my emotional problems. At times, suicide came across my mind, though I have made lots of attempts in the past. I don't want to be conclusive and say I wouldn't do in the future. Rather than taking my own life that way, I live my life doing what they want me to do. My parents might want my support, fine, my sister too. I'll do whatever they want me to do. Whatever my opinion is, it doesn't matter. Besides, I don't know anything anyway. What I only know is to keep whatever eating habits I have and reach 50 kilos this year. It doesn't matter if I collapse. If it's not gone, I look thin and small. Right now, they're checking me. They're checking on me time by time if I eat something or not. I avoided rice, pasta, slowly soda, and milk. I only ate once a day, whether it's breakfast, brunch, or dinner, before 4 p.m., as long as it's only once a day. This matters to me and plays a vital role in my life. This is the only thing that defines what I want, and my goals are more apparent than anything else. Surprising, isn't it?
So all in all, I think
that at that time I deserve to be punished and suffer. Because I believe that my life has always been like that and it will not change. And given that I have a Scorpio moon, it's easy for me to say that my life has always been bad and it will always remain bad. And I will die living with its badness. Until now, I cannot say that I'm completely cured or healed from the trauma that I have, because it will always be part of me and it will always be part of my journey, lifetime journey, if you will. Until now, I'm fighting with the eating disorder that I've developed over the years. I'm still trying to manage the emotional outbursts that I have, lashing out through meditation, through continuous daily meditation. And knowing that I have my Lilith in my first house, it is necessary for me to recognize the self. From the earliest thing in the morning, the first hour of the morning, and the last hour of the evening. It's important for me to remind myself that I am okay and I am enough. At this point, you're wondering how my mental health struggles affect my writing life. Honestly, writing saved my life. I survived the horrors of childhood abuse for such a long time by disassociating from reality when my brain had to create characters and scenarios, distracting me from the painful battery. In general, writing stories helped me overcome the horrifying moments of my life and define my life's purpose despite the struggle to acknowledge and wholeheartedly accept myself for how and who I truly am. Until now, I honestly still find it hard to find that love, self-love, However, my writing journey and sharing this vulnerable side of me with you allowed me to feel just that. I know that time will come when I can do it, when I can say, wow, I've overcome those things. Wow, I survived all the horrors of my life without questioning or rationalizing whether I deserve that love or not. Because in the end, simply being an alive and conscious human being is a reason for me to love and be loved unconditionally. Maybe for you, this task seemed so easy, but for me, it's quite hard. But if you're someone who has suffered from CPTSD like me, this is quite a journey that we can share or engage, and together we heal. And this is the very reason why I'm uploading videos, sharing with you the journey that I have through writing, and having writing as an instrument or a medium to heal my trauma and childhood, like my CPTSD, my complex PTSD, my childhood trauma, the narcissistic abuse that I overcame. All the demons that I have inside me will be unleashed and channeled properly to transform the painful stories that I have accumulated in my life into something inspiring, something romantic that you and I will appreciate. This is my purpose as a writer. I am not just writing stories because it's fun. I'm writing stories because it is one way for me to channel out the creative energies that I have hidden for so long time. The energies that I wasn't allowed to harness. The same energy that I wasn't allowed to use. Thinking that this is weakness and being vulnerable and being soft is weakness. I hope that in this video, although this is quite long and all you see in this video have a lot to deal with forest, but I like to share this energy from the forest and allow the energy of the forest to flow with you, flow to you, and allow me to share this experience of healing my complex PTSD, letting them go, to move forward as an adult in my 30s now, so I can finally close the door and close the chapter of my childhood in a positive, transformative, proactive way possible. If the message of this video resonates with you, I encourage you to leave a comment below and share your thoughts and feelings about what I've shared with you today, what I have shared with you today, and I hope that the message resonates with you as a writer, or even if you're not a writer, or you're not seriously taking a look at it, or you're still thinking, maybe you're still in the crossroads of life and you stumbled upon my video. I hope that this video inspires you or pokes something in your heart that wasn't poked before. That will be all today, and see you in the next one. Tschüss!